Tonight in Live Oak, community members expressing their concerns of the use of flock cameras that have been in place in the city over the past few months. At tonight's city council meeting, people shared they feel the cameras are an invasion of privacy. City officials also questioned the police department about why there wasn't any discussion among the council about the implementation of the flock cameras. Now, these cameras are used by law enforcement to help prevent and solve crimes by capturing car data like someone's license plate and sending real-time alerts. The Live Oak Police Department says these cameras are put on public property like major streets where there's no expectation of privacy.
Much like, our firearms, the taser that I carry, procurement policy doesn't require us to go through the council on something like that. So it wasn't a major shift. It just, because of that previous application to the city council about something that was, I think they felt that maybe we should have done that with this too, which no harm, no foul. We could do it differently next time.
There are 16 total flock cameras in Suwannee County, with 8 of them in